As, as the baseball strike moves through its fourth week now, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Staub, as player representative of the New York Mets, and you, Mr. Steinbrenner, as principal owner of the New York Yankees, how long you think, or perhaps guess would be a better word, the strike is likely to last. Let's start with Mr. Staub.
Well, very truthfully, having been in just about every meeting since the strike started, I really wish I could be optimistic, but I'm not right now. The major problem of directly punishing a ball club for attempting to sign a free agent, therefore taking away the basic ability of the free agent signing the kind of contract he would without that penalty. We have never broached that yet. Anytime it's ever brought up, we're just on two different planets, as Mr. Greavy says.
Okay, Mr. Steinbrenner, I assume you've revised your original prediction it would be over by June 15th?
Well, I really felt that it would. I guess I have to draw on Mark Twain by saying that the saddest thing to see is a young pessimist except for an optimistic senior citizen, like myself, I guess. I still feel that this issue, the issues that are on that table, if we bargain in good faith, can be brought to a head very quickly. And I think I look for some movement this week. I'm hopeful. I'm not there every day like Rusty is, but I'm more optimistic.
From CBS News, New York, a spontaneous and unrehearsed news interview on Face the Nation with George Steinbrenner, owner of the New York Yankees, and Rusty Staub, first baseman for the New York Mets and a member of the baseball players' negotiating team. Mr. Steinbrenner and Mr. Staub will be questioned by CBS News correspondent Ray Gandolf, by Jane Gross, a sports reporter for the New York Times, and by the moderator, CBS News correspondent George Herman. Face the Nation is produced by CBS News, which is solely responsible for the selection of today's guest and panel.
Well, Mr. Steinbrenner, let's explore your optimism a little bit, especially since Mr. Staub thinks the major issue hasn't really been broached yet. What makes you think that it can be over in a week?
Well, as I said, I think Rusty's been in there, and he's naturally comes out as a young pessimist, and I guess I'm the old optimist. But if I sit down with a pencil and paper, and I've had a number of years' experience in labor relations, and look at the issues that are there, they can be boiled down to about 3 or 4 main negotiable points. And I just can't believe, of course, it's been a year and a half they've been talking about those negotiable points, but I still cannot believe that it cannot, if the right set of circumstances just occur, be brought to a head very quickly. And as I said, I feel it should be.
George, you have been, certainly in my opinion, the most successful practitioner of the current system of free agency. Doesn't making the rules more conservative force you to operate at a lower level, sort of along with the less competent owners?
Well, I don't know about less competent owners, but let me say this, Jane. I have been a big user of free agency along with several other teams. So that in effect, what I as an owner am advocating now will in some sense restrict my ability to use free agents, although I will still go out and bid for them the same way if I want a player. But I really strongly feel that at this point, it's time for compensation more than just a draft choice, because a draft choice I have seen over the past 4 or 5 years since this thing was initiated in 1976. A draft choice in baseball is not like a draft choice in football and basketball. And when we put free agency in 76, we agreed that it was experimental and we would try it on the basis of a draft choice. That, to my way of thinking, has not worked. It isn't enough to give a team back because that young man may be 5 or 6 years away from playing. So we've come to the point, even though where I may be speaking against myself in some sense, or against the Yankees' practices, I feel it's only fair to give a good player back when I take a good player from another team.
You mentioned other sports in there, Mr. Steinbrenner. The National Basketball Association recently came up with an idea, they're doing it now, in which a free agent can sign with another club. The club, his parent club, can meet that offer or not, and if it doesn't, he goes to the other club. No compensation. And I want to ask first Mr. Staub, would the players accept that kind of?
Well, it's something that's never been brought up. The biggest problem we've had is what I stated earlier, is that we constantly keep talking about, penalizing that club to the point where you know, there's an awful lot of players out there who are not going to be able to adequately try to get a job even.
But on the compensation issue, the owners want compensation when they lose a free agent. Players say that's okay, and it comes down, it seems, to whether it's going to be affect 12 players maybe, or 16, or whether the free agent comes from a pool or the losing club. This seems to a lot of people to be nitpicking.
Well, if you're going to talk about the stated objectives that the owners have, there's no doubt the Player Association has considered it and come back with a proposal, which is our pool proposal, which gives them what they've asked for, pertaining to the stated things they want, not the unstated things. The pool program, beyond a doubt, gives them an opportunity to get a very good player, depending on the type of free agent that is signed by the signing club. Now, when you have a very talented person go to another club, we agree. You can have the free agent. I mean the signing player. It's awfully hot, I'm losing it. But I must admit that in all the things that we've discussed with the owners, it keeps coming back to the fact that when you have...
Well, let me ask Mr. Steinbrenner.
I've really lost it. I'm
Ray,
sorry.
let me
hot.
You want to
go
respond
to
to
that
that?
question, since I have a part of an NBA team in Chicago. That system is being tried 1 year. Before I would want to say that that's a viable alternative or a viable solution, I would certainly want to see that system in effect more than the 1 year as it's doing in the NBA, because there are many NBA owners right now who are upset with that system because it hasn't done what it was supposed to do. I don't know, the Cleveland team got out and bid on some players, and I don't have all the full particulars, but I'd rather see that system in effect a little longer before we talk about going to that, the NBA system that you spoke of.
Right. Well, baseball in the courts, though, 6 years ago, the right of a ball player to play out his contract, become a free agent, was established by an arbitrator, upheld by a court, period. There was no compensation was something that was arrived at later.
Well, Ray, in the working out of the system, we in baseball sat with the Players Association to work out the system and the rules under which this would take place. And the agreement was in 1976 that we would, in fact, work out a system. And the system that we arrived at that time, we said, well, all right, the team that loses the player will get a first-round draft choice. And we would try it on that basis. Now, that system, in my way of thinking, a first-round draft choice in baseball as compared to football or basketball where they move right in with the pro team, isn't the same thing. You're taking many high school boys and boys that take 5 and 6 years of conditioning before they're ready to play in the majors. So, in other words, to go back and say that that system would always be the way, we both agreed we'd try it this way. Now, in my opinion, we need compensation, and the draft choice is not enough. We need more compensation for a team that loses a player. That's what the players have said. So last year when we negotiated, we gave to the Players Association in the negotiation a great deal of fringe benefits. We made them their pension vested immediately. The average salary came up to around $200,000. We raised the minimum salaries, and we gave those things. They in turn gave back to us one of the things we felt we did get was their assurance that they would negotiate in good faith on these issues. And I think I can't criticize them. I don't say they haven't been. Okay. Now let me just finish, Rusty, and then I'll be at peace here. The thing that we felt was that, well, now the draft choice didn't work out, so let's now try for a player and negotiate out how we could set up a system to get a player. So that really, it was part of the negotiating thing, and we avoided a strike last year, took it away from being a strike issue with the consent of the players, and we now feel that we have to negotiate to get something more than a draft choice, and I think, as Rusty said, they agree with that.
Do you agree with that basic premise?
We have tried to. First off, I'd like to apologize to all my colleagues. I don't think anybody understands how hot it gets in here sometimes, and
Hotter than on
I
the
was
field?
just like I was almost faint. Forgive me. I think the real thing that we're not getting across is that this has been an ownership problem from the beginning. It's not a player problem. The people like George who have gotten into this thing, some of the state owners have felt that they have gone too far in the salaries that they're paying right now. the pool program that we have on the table right now.
Explain it just a trifle for an outsider like me.
Well, you have, right now, if a player is a quality player, okay, and he's going to go out into the free agent market, the big thing is that we've said, fine, as long as you don't make that player be directly hurt by becoming a free agent, by making a penalty be on that other club that's going to sign him, you know, we can work this out. We understand you want a player, okay? We've given them this pool program. Any club that wants to enter the draft obviously is going to have to put up players. It gives each club that wants to be in the draft a chance to sign free agents, therefore they have a chance to lose some people from their organization. Any club that does not want to get into the draft does not have to put any players into this pool. No matter how far we've gone discussing this particular pool issue, it has not made any difference because as soon as we get to the pool issue, they want to go back to having direct compensation penalizing the club that signs the free agent. And, you know, as I keep stating, we do understand what their problems are. We have tried desperately to find ways to solve these problems. No matter what we've tried to do and make them understand that we cannot touch the roster plus some people to give this kind of player back to them, it keeps coming back to the same idea. That 15th player, Georgia's club would not even be able to enter into the draft most of the time now. You have to protect everybody that's a 10-5 man or a guy that has a no-trade clause. Right now, the Los Angeles Dodgers could not enter into it because they have so many people on long-term contracts that Fernando Valenzuela would be open, Guerrero would be open. I mean, these people are not going to get into the free agent market.
Mr. Steinbrenner, I wanted to ask you, in line with that, what difference does it make to the owners where the compensation comes from?
I think one of the hang-ups with the owners on the pool concept is that, as Rusty said, if you just want to enter into the draft, to be able to draft a player, then you have to put a player into the pool. Now, you may not even get anybody out of the draft, but you may lose a player. For instance, if the Yankees put one of their top players into the pool because we want to draft Rusty Staub. We drafted Rusty last year. We weren't lucky enough to get him, but we drafted him. That means I have to put a player in there. Now, if Rusty goes and signs with the Mets, the team that lost Rusty would still come back and have the right to take the Yankee player that's in the pool. And the Yankees didn't get anything for it. And I think that's one of the problems with the owners. They don't like the idea of giving up a player, putting a player in the pool when they didn't even get a player back. See?
You said something a moment ago that I found very interesting. You said you thought this could be settled very quickly under the right circumstances. You didn't say with the right issues. You said under the right circumstances. You're talking about, for example, the owners talking directly to the players. What are the right circumstances? Well,
George, let me say this. As I look at the negotiations that have taken place, I'm a great believer that a camel is a horse created by a committee, okay? I just think when we have too many people in a bargaining room, it's been my experience over 25 years in dealing with about 14 unions, that there comes a point when it's best not to have too many people in that negotiating room. So I wouldn't say that maybe the owners should come in. I would rather see that group contracted down to maybe only 2 or 3 people.
Then what are the right circumstances?
And the right circumstances, I say, as I read, and I only get what I read in the papers and what I hear secondhand on this because I'm not on the negotiating committee as Rusty is, there's a great deal of animosity and hate, I'm afraid, maybe being built up in there. That happens when you're in union or labor negotiations over a period of time and sitting there looking at each other for a year and a half. Animosities start to build up. And maybe both sides have to take a look at those and see if in fact, the solution can come quickly with that situation, if it is in existence, and Rusty would know more about that than I would, but I sense that it's there, and in past negotiations I've seen it personally.
Isn't it possible then that if there were new people in there, perhaps 1 or 2 owners instead of Mr. Grebe, who seems to be at the center of a lot of that animosity, that might help? George?
Well, I have to defend Mr. Grebe. He is our representative, just as I'm sure Rusty will defend Marvin Miller. I happen to think both men are brilliant, and both men are very fine men as far as I'm concerned. I've always said that. And he is our legal representative, and we've appointed him. I don't know. That's just a thought. I'm not certainly one to be doing that because I'm following my my player relations committee, and so it might be a possibility. I just say I've seen situations similar, Jane, where that was.
Is there some point at which you stop being satisfied with their performance?
Well, let me say this. I will not be dissatisfied with the performance of the Player Relations Committee. We all voted them in as a committee, and we have cast our lot with Mr. Grebe as he has, as Rusty has with Marvin Miller. But I just say that I have seen this work, Jane. I have seen it work where a little change here or there and a little contraction of the number of peoples are going to make it easier for Mr. Moffat, who's the mediator, I think, and who I think is doing everything he can to bring this about, make it easier for him to come to a successful season.
Rusty,
let me add one
is this
thing.
season dead, Mr. Staub?
Well, let me put it this way. I have to say something in that area. From the beginning, the players have been involved in this particular negotiation, have not been afraid to be there. There is a big gag rule on all the owners, and that's why you've seen very few things pertaining to owners. In fact, I was very surprised George made the show today.
Oh, I've been here all morning.
Right. No, I understand that. What we're down to right now is, George is right. There are tremendous animosities built up from the commissioner, the league presidents, Ray Grebe. We really feel, besides those people and their lawyers, that there are some owners, no doubt about it, took a firm, hard line this year and said, if we don't get what we want this time, we're going to hurt them. We're going to let them strike. We're going to force them to strike.
How long ago did they say that?
Well, this is obviously something that's been planned an awful long time. I mean, this $50 million insurance policy has been set up for quite a while. The issue that we're discussing now, this compensation issue, we've told them from the beginning the way they want to do it. It's a strike issue. A year and a half ago, they knew that. Right now, we're into the 23rd or 4th day of a strike, and about a week ago, Ray Grebe said compensation is not a strike issue.
Do you think that the insurance money that the owners are collecting is an incentive for them not to seek a speedy settlement?
Well, as I was saying, there are some people that are no doubt about it in our mind trying to break the union. I don't think all the owners are, but the animosities have been built up through the commissioner's office, the PRC board, and some hardline owners. Without the constructive work between both groups, negotiations down the line are going to be the same as this is right now. Ultimatums and forcing people to do things as they have with us right now to go on this strike. I think that if the owners do get involved in the backdrop, we're not afraid to talk to Ray Grebe and have him be the head of their group. But the stonewalling, the absolutely not discussing what our main objectives, the things that we really can't live with. We don't have a demand on the table. This is something that's their problem.
Well, if this thing stays hard-nosed now, and it's just as hard-nosed now as it was 24 days ago, it seems to me, at what point in the season are you going to throw up your hands and say, that's it, we're all going to take a bath, season's over?
We're gaining on it.
Well, Ray, let me say this. I think in answer to some of the things Rusty said, you have to understand two things about the owners. The average pay of an average baseball player today is around $200,000 a year. They have probably the greatest pension plan that I have ever seen anywhere in any of the industries I'm connected with. And they travel in a first-class way. We try to do things in a first-class way. So I wouldn't say that we've been exactly Simon Legree's where they're concerned, nor would I say that the strike insurance is any great benefit for the owners, because it's not. The way it's divided up, it sounds like a big number, but when you divide it over the number of games and then divide it by 26 teams, it doesn't come out to...
It's more than the players are drawing.
Well, it may be more than the players are drawing, but what I say is that we didn't create a strike as far as I'm concerned. And I don't ever want anybody to say that George Steinbrenner or anybody that I know in baseball as an owner has ever said, I want to bust the union. I want to make that very clear. I don't think we have.
At what point in the season, though, do you have to say, we can't play the remainder of this?
Well, I don't know. That point may come sometime. If it comes that far in September, I don't think that if we got to the 1st of September, it would mean very much the last 30 days. Would it, Rusty?
Well, this is something to be seen. We can only hope that as I've said many times, some new enlightenment can come into this thing. But no matter how many times we bring up all the problems that we've had with their proposal on compensation, no matter how many times we raise genuine, things that concern us, they're not listened to. We have never broached the fact that they want to directly punish that club, and that's going to hurt anybody that's in the free agent market. Under the guidelines of the proposal that's on the table right now, It's an incentive for clubs not to try to sign players because they're going to get another player maybe like that player, maybe even better in certain circumstances. Because if they're going to draft, even if they had direct compensation, if someone like the Yankees picked somebody, they'd be pleased because they could get a better player maybe than someone that's a free agent. You know, these kind of problems, you know, everybody keeps talking about the salaries the players are making. The average salary is around $175,000, but the mean salary is about $105,000, which is the middle player. The salaries are not the issues. The owners are taking in tremendous gate receipts. Radio and TV has never been better. All the criteria that they were concerned with from the beginning of this free agency period, their concerns, I mean, they had 5 or 6 points. Competitive balance has never been better. Attendance has never been better. You know, the actual idea of having compensation we don't understand in the first place. But we've heard their problems. We've tried to put ourselves in their position so we can see what they are. And we have definitely tried to come up with a way for them to get a good player in return without penalizing that player that's the free agent.
Mr. Steinbrenner, are you likely to join 2 other owners who are interested in calling a meeting of the owners?
No, I don't know that there's any plan to call a meeting of the owners, and I don't know that that's necessary. I want to say a couple things to what Rusty has said here. Number one, we talked about, if you'll recall, we talked about the right platform to solve this thing. I don't think having all the players in the meeting is the right platform. In the first place, the players don't even negotiate their own contracts. They all have agents. So if they can't negotiate their own contracts, how do they feel they can come into a complex issue like this and negotiate? Particularly without Marvin Miller in there, who is a brilliant man, in my opinion.
There are no owners in there.
See, this is one of the fallacies
Well,
that's come down, because I have to say this right now, George.
You want to let me finish?
The players, I can't because we're running short of time. The players are absolutely the people that make the decisions in this area, and this is one of the fallacies that's been for years. The reason why Marvin left these meetings, because most of the owners and a lot of people in the media keep saying that he's the reason why we're on strike. While we were on strike, the players had the opportunity to go in, sit down, and they could have sold anything they want to us. And this is one of the real problems we have, is that they really don't understand. It's not Marvin Miller. It's the Player Association and its
The
group.
problem you got, Rusty, is that you got too many guys in there, different guys coming in and out that don't know what they're doing in labor negotiations.
We have not had that at all.
There's an old saying that knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. Alfred Lord Tennyson said that.
Gentlemen, is there going to be an all-star game this year?
Is there going to be an all-star game?
Can there be
I
one?
would say if it ends soon, there will be an all-star game. There should be a way for the fans to
I
have
really
it
can't
listed.
voice an opinion. That's one of the things they haven't discussed with us.
Can it be done in the time remaining?
Well, you know, I mean, a lot of things can be done, you know, if they're worked on. I wish I had a better answer
How
for
much
you.
time do players need to get in shape for any game, let alone All-Star game?
Well, right now, obviously, one of the things that's a big issue is how much time we're going to get back in shape, and the accredited service that, you know, is going to mean a great deal to a lot of players.
Well, the accredited service is a negotiable item. I mean, it's an item that should go for grievance procedure and arbitration, so you won't have a problem with that.
On that negotiable point, we've run out of negotiable time. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being our guests on Face the Nation.
My pleasure.